All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the Teed Up podcast. Tonight, I am joined by the one, the only Nate Geary from WGR and Locked On Bills. He's one of my fellow Locked On Bills guys, but doesn't get the chance to talk about NBA too much. So, how you doing tonight, Nate?
I'm good now because we're going to have a good opportunity to talk some basketball here. So I'm into it.
Yeah.
I just want to get out of the way right now. I don't really have a team affiliation. I have an affiliation with a player, and that's Carmelo Anthony. I grew up with Melo as a Q's player, so I've been a Denver Nuggets fan, a New York Knicks fan, and now I'm an OKC fan, and I'm very excited about being an OKC fan.
Yeah, right. Best probably you've had it in his NBA career so far. I am not going to lie. I'm not even hiding it tonight.
No, I know. I can see
who I'm a fan of. But they're playing right now. I think they just tipped off. So that's how much I love the podcast. I'll catch up here on League Pass in a little bit. So opening night for the Bulls, but we're going to get to that at some point here. I'm dying to get your views. We wanted to have you on for the opening. I ran through my playoff projection, so we're a little bit past that, but I wanted to get your views on that opening night of games, and then we'll go on to the last night's games. But let's start right out the gates talking about the Celtics Cavaliers opening game. Big storyline going into it. Did you get a chance to watch it? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously the Gordon Hayward injury sticks out for everybody. It was just a really difficult moment, but what I guess I was happy to see was that they appear to still be a competitive team without Gordon Hayward. Although I really think having Gordon Hayward with Jaylen Brown and just the idea that Jaylen Brown's now sort of thrust into this position of a main scorer, I don't love. But the Celtics are still going to be a good team in that East. The East is going to be better this year than maybe they have been in the past 10 years, maybe combined. So I'm really excited about the East this year. But yeah, I mean, that Celtics-Cavs game, interesting enough, some quotes after the game. LeBron was talking about how he needs to be better. And he was like, what, assist away from a triple-double? Like that just goes to show you, though. I think that Cavs team is going to be a lot better than people give them credit for. They are deep, man. They are deep.
They are deep. One of the things I don't personally love about the Cavs, I am known as a bit of a LeBron hater. Don't
worry about it, man.
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
I respect the guy's game. I really do.
Sure.
But one of the things I'm worried about the Cavs is LeBron seems to be in control of that team, and he was responsible for David Bland getting fired, really. And David Bland's actually a really good offensive basketball mind, and wherever LeBron goes, the ball doesn't really seem to move. Like, he gets his stats, but you saw that coming out of the half. That's
the main reason that Kyrie wanted to move. It's got to be. I mean, it's a player that maybe some of his best skills weren't being utilized. You know, typically because LeBron is a guy that demands the ball.
He does. Whoa, I lost you there for a second.
Oh, my bad. No, I was just saying, like, even though he lost Gordon Hayward, he's still a guy that's going to demand the ball now in Boston, where he wasn't going to in Cleveland.
Yeah, and LeBron does like to get assists. Obviously, he was an assist away from a triple-double, but it just seemed like that offense just got stale for moments at a time throughout that third quarter. Celtics came out. One thing that I really liked about the Celtics was with the first game in the season, they had to face adversity. Not a lot of teams have to do that. You get the star that you bring in to really put you over the top and have you compete with the Cavs, Warriors. And he goes out within minutes of you tipping off, and they've recovered really well from that. I thought the game was going to be a blowout after that.
So did I.
Started to look like it was going to run away from them, and they came out of that second half, and they had good ball movement. They were forcing turnovers, and the Cavs just weren't playing team basketball. You saw the difference between a team willing to play team basketball and a team playing ISO and just kind of.
Well, I think too, you see the Brad Stevens system compared to the Tyronn Lue system, which there is no system in Cleveland, and that is a team that is going to desperately need a good working team basketball system, similar to, like, you know, San Antonio. Or the problem is they just have so many mouths to feed. I mean, when you consider who they've got coming off, Dwayne Wade's coming off their bench. He's a guy that's going to demand to see the ball. I mean, that's a guy when he's on the court needs the ball in his hands to be successful. The same with J.R. Smith. I mean, J.R. Smith's like their eighth player coming off the bench. You know, like he's their eighth man. Like, that's a guy that needs the ball in his hands and needs to be able to shoot to be successful. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but their depth will be able to challenge Golden State, in my opinion.
Yeah, they definitely have the depth. It's just weird depth to me, right? And
maybe not fitting depth, because I'll tell you what they don't have is they don't have a dominant big. Like, they don't have a guy that if they're matched up on the perimeter that they can just say, we're going to go play big man ball. They don't have that this year. So
no, they don't. I do like Tristan Thompson.
Me too, but as
he's
an
more of
offensive
like
player,
a scrappy. Yeah, no, he's a scrappy rebound kind of guy. But I really think that they've killed Kevin Love a little bit. I talk about it a lot with my friends. I think his career, he's just not the same guy he was 3 years ago. And it's a shame because he's still a really good player. I see it in him when he's just hesitant. I think LeBron maybe has yelled at him too many times for making mistakes, taking too many shots. And it's just a shame because he was one of my favorite players when he was up in Minnesota. I just loved everything about the guy. And I like the resurgence of Derrick Rose. I think watching him and his athleticism come back, I think that's going to be huge. And it'll be interesting to see what Isaiah Thomas, how he fits into this team when he comes back. So I definitely agree with you about the depth, and I think they're definitely still top seed.
Yeah.
But I think that the Celtics don't fall off too hard without.
No, the only other team I could think of that really pops out to me in the East is like Toronto or, in my opinion, Philadelphia. Maybe a team that doesn't get. I mean, maybe that does get talked about a lot because of Joel Embiid, but I really love Ben Simmons, and I liked Ben Simmons when he came out. I think he's the rookie of the year this year.
He had a great
and then you have Markelle Fultz, right? Yeah, exactly. And he's the kind of guy that can average a triple-double. That's the kind of guy that can be comfortable getting 11 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and not demand to be the offensive weapon, but be the facilitator. And I think it's important for every team who's going to go up against the Golden State Warriors at some point. If you're going to beat the Golden State, you need to be a team that doesn't necessarily, that has one facilitator on that team that can set up the other four guys around him.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. The Sixers are one of my most fun teams that I'm looking forward to watching this year. I don't know. I think this year is that first step of getting into the playoffs, maybe. I see them anywhere between like the 6 to 8 seed. And I wouldn't want to match up with them in the playoffs. They're one of those teams going to make you fight if you get in a scrapping match with them. I think the Warriors could be a team that could maybe challenge the Celtics to get into that top tier. And the Bucks are definitely a team, which we'll get into them a little bit more later, as Giannis had a huge game the other night. And they're a team that could sneak into that top 2 conversation. They got great length. They're going to be a tough team. So before we get too deep into that, let's swap over to I think was a big upset, because I think Vegas had them. Warriors were a 9.5 point favorite, and it was the Rockets Warriors game, and Rockets came out and they won on the Warriors court on ring night. So
I think it's interesting. Everybody's really worried about how Chris Paul fits in that offense.
Yeah.
I think he fits fine in that offense. I think he needs to be more of a shooter. I think he needs to be a guy that's willing to shoot 8 threes a game, because that's an offense that demands its starters to be 3-point shooters.
Right.
I like Houston a lot. I like Ryan Anderson. I would have liked them more if they got Carmelo, obviously, but I like the tandem guards that they're going to bring out every night. I think that it matches up well against a team like Golden State. Now, it's a matter of whether or not they match up other places. I think maybe you're looking at a team that has come out and of course is going to have early success. Is it a team that can have long-term success against Golden State? I'm not sure. I don't know that there's a lot of teams that can have long-term success against Golden State. They're just too deep of a roster. But no, Houston's interesting, and the West after this offseason has become a really, not that it wasn't before, but now it becomes even more competitive conference. And I think the top 4 teams are really a kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, I love the Rockets. I was super surprised by them last year and their record. I said in my last podcast about how they came out and they had a better record than anyone in the East. That blew me away because I just didn't see it on paper when I looked at that roster. And I think Harden should have won the MVP last year for that alone, just because he had them with so many wins, such a high seed. And you take him off that team and they were nothing last year. So adding Chris Paul, I'm one of those people that kind of struggle to see how he fits in the offense, but he ended the game with 11 assists. I mean, I don't think he feels like he needs to be the guy anymore.
I think if he's comfortable being a 14 to 15 point a night kind of guy, but can add in 8 rebounds and 12 assists, he's going to fit fine into that offense. And listen, I think the more that you can take James Harden away from the primary ball handler position on that team, the better you're going to be, because I just think he is the most dangerous when he's an off-ball player, when he's the kind of guy that can catch a pass and either drive, or is the kind of guy that can be a really effective spot-up shooter. And as much as I think he can be a triple-double guy, I don't think he's maybe the most fit to be a triple-double guy. I think really he's better off being a guy that can score in the mid-30s than a guy that can score in the high 20s but also be a triple-double guy. I think he is really an offensive weapon that I think Chris Paul's maybe going to maximize. I understand the worries about fit, but I think Chris Paul is the type of player that could fit in any system you ask him, and he's willing to be a part of. I think that, he's going to do what he needs to do to make that team successful.
I don't disagree. And after watching them, and one thing I have to remember is this is not the NBA of the 1990s, right? So most of the games are finishing over 100 points. Guys are going to get their shots. So Harden's going to get chances, even with Chris Paul on the floor, to bring the ball up and to facilitate. He likes playing with the ball in his hand. So he likes taking guys off the dribble. So he'll get those shots and chances. And you look at some of these teams, and everybody said that there's only one ball to go around. Well, it seems to be working throughout the NBA, and guys are scoring well over 100. I mean, I think Trailblazers won 124-76 the other night. So,
right.
I'm not worried about who can get the ball.
I'm personally in the thought that there's going to be a team in the next few years that has a 30-point scorer and two 20-point scorers. Like, I'm there in terms of where the league is going as a scoring league. And not only that, there's less and less good defense being played across the league and more elite offensive talent coming into it as we speak. So the thing isn't how you stop these players, it's how you acquire a player that can be one of these top tier offensive players. And when you look at all the best teams, they don't have Tony Allen. Isn't the coveted type of player he was 4 years ago. And it's not because he's older. It's just because defense isn't coveted like it used to be. People want a guy. If you could score 20 points per game in this league, you're going to make a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And look, the Rockets are a great example of that. They really aren't a great defensive team. I do like Trevor Ariza as a perimeter defender, and Capella's okay. Then
as a rim protector, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's not a great rim protector. He's just a big body. Harden is a terrible defender. I mean, there's YouTube clips you can see of him just getting toasted like a bullfighter, just allowing guys to go by him. So there's definitely a premium on scorers. I don't disagree with you. And Golden State's a prime example, though. Maybe not the 30, 20, and 20, but that game, even though they lost, Steph had 22, Durant had 20, and Swaggy P, Nick Young, had 23 points off the bench.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what, if he's coming off their bench and is going to hit 6 threes like that, 6 to 7, I think he ended up the game with. Jeez. Yeah. I mean, that is such an interesting ad for them. I did not think that was going to work out. I thought that he'd be a trade deadline guy that they were just going to ship out because he just did not fit their system. He looks like a marvelous fit off their bench. They're the type of team that has no problem running 10 guys off. They'll run a second unit at you that is nearly as lethal as their. Listen, Sean Livingston does not get enough credit as one of those versatile offensive weapons that can post you up, that can shoot the three when you need him to. That team has 2 teams in one. It's crazy.
Yeah, I love Livingston. The resurrection of his career.
It's been great to see.
I love guys that find a role or just become that role and they just own it. And he's a super unselfish player, great defender too. And but I agree with the Golden State Warriors. I feel like they're kind of ripping into that mold. Obviously, it's a totally different team, but they have that kind of like Spurs. Always seem to have guys that come off their bench.
Yep.
They can face attrition throughout the year because they have just guys, and the guys just fit the system and they play. And maybe those guys aren't great other places, but they fit. And so I see that with the Warriors. And when I got excited for the NBA, they said, there's no parity in the league. I'm not going to watch. Who it's going to be. There's still so much fun to be had, even watching the Warriors or watching these other teams. There's so much young talent in this league that I don't care if the Warriors are highly rated by Vegas to win it all. Like, there's so much to be excited about. What do you think about that?
I think that there's more parity in the league that people are willing to admit. I think teams like New Orleans bring a really interesting feel to what the rest of the league is doing. For instance, I think when you look at the league, everybody is zigging. Everyone's looking for that explosive guard that can shoot the three. They're also looking for that stretch four that can be a three-point shooter and give you mismatch nightmares. But a team like New Orleans, if they can be successful, are going to force teams to play bigger. They're going to force a team like Golden State to maybe play bigger guys than they want to play in a game. Maybe you can't play, Draymond at the 5 like a lot of times they want to do. Like you can't play Draymond against DeMarcus Cousins and then put, Nate. What I'm trying to think of who they've played at a smaller stretch 4 position.
Kevin, KD.
Right. I mean, you want to put KD up against AD? Yeah. No. You're not doing that. So the one thing I find interesting,
or something.
Exactly. So what I find interesting is teams want to go small. That's today's NBA. They want to go small. They want to be versatile. They want to be shooting. New Orleans brings an interesting touch because they have 2 big guys in the 4 and 5 that are maybe the maybe the top 2 and 3 post players in the league that can also, by the way, right, they can listen, Cousins can step outside with the best of them in terms of 3-point shooters at the 4 and 5 position. They really bring to me, if they can figure out if Rajon Rondo and Drew Holiday can be 2 players that maybe resurrect their career, and which I just think it's crazy that Drew Holiday made the money that he has, knowing he hasn't had the success that I think a lot of people, he got paid based off of what he could be, not of what he is. And I think that's really kind of where the NBA is going. But if Drew Holiday can transition into a 2 guard and you have Rajon Rondo running point and Tony Allen as your 3 with those 2, that is a really formidable starting lineup. They just have no bench. But New Orleans is a team that interests me because they're zigging or they're zagging while everyone else is zigging.
Yeah, and I actually have them as a playoff team. I think they're anywhere in that 7-8 seed. And tonight I think this weekend maybe will be an interesting matchup for that. I think they're going up against the Lakers coming up soon, which is another team I had.
I love the Lakers
as a playoff team this year. But to kind of hit on that point that you're talking about, I have a buddy I talk a lot NBA with, and I say all the time that where everybody's going small, like guys like Embiid and like you said, Boogie and these guys, if you have a dominant big man, they're going to dominate the entire league, and you really can't stop it. You can try to flush it out with 3-point shooting on the other end, but some of these dominant guys, man, if I'm a coach, I'm building around that personally, because I don't want to run small ball against the Warriors because it's going to be really hard to put a team together that can compete with that small ball. But if you can dominate them in the post, win the rebound game, and have a big guy that can hit his foul shots, then you might have a chance to really upset some things.
I love what you said about Philly and Embiid because I think their addition of Redick is just such a brilliant move. It's a team that the one thing they didn't have was great 3-point shooting. If you could be a team that's built around terrific post play, which Saric and him, I think, in my opinion, they're the best 4-5 outside of Boogie and AD that you can find in this league, because both of those guys can step outside and hit the 3. But the thing to me that makes them dangerous is the fact that they are built so much inside the post but have a lethal 3-point shooter on the outside. I think that's the one thing that New Orleans is missing, is maybe that one guy that can be relied upon to be a low 40s percentage-wise shooting from 3, like a Kyle Korver type player. Like I think that's what they're missing, but I just think they have all the other aspects to be a really nice team. But you're totally right. It's the team that I think is going to build from an offensive player inside the post out that can add some unique scoring options. And that's why, to me, New Orleans makes a lot of sense as a sleeper pick. It's just whether or not Gentry can get that team playing the type of basketball that they brought him in for, which so far I've been really disappointed in Alvin Gentry as a coach for that team. I just expected more out of New Orleans so far.
Yeah, and I mean, the season's so young, too.
Sure, but you got to look at last year. That was, to me, the disappointing part, is I expected more after the All-Star break, after the trade. But you had to know that playing 27.5 point per game big men together there was gonna be an adjustment period there.
Going to take some time, and not only that many points, but they're also both pulling down
10 boards apiece. Yeah.
Digit rebounds. Yeah. You're going to get probably 5-6 block shots a game between the two of them. So it's definitely not the direction that the league has been going in. I mean, there was some of that in the 90s where you had just two totally dominant big men on teams. So I think it'll take a little time, but I think the lack of help, like you said, I think you're going to see a lot of stat lines this year where those guys drop 20 and 12 each and just nothing else, no other support. And, they lose close games that way. You have to have somebody else that's at least putting up, 16 points and 10 assists or something. But I don't see a lot of guys on their roster that can, bring that type of offense.
Right, but at the same time, you do see a team that could play really good defense and be a team that maybe doesn't win the traditional way. Maybe a team that's going to win with a lot of 90s scores. If any team's going to do it, it's New Orleans that's going to kind of maybe recreate that style of ball.
Yeah, and like I said, I had them as the 7th seed in the playoffs, and that could be a tough matchup for some of these teams. I think I'd Spurs as the 2nd seed, so
it's weird. It's weird for me because I see the Spurs as anywhere from the 10th to the 2nd seed. It's like it's really anywhere for me because I think that they could struggle only because I don't love LaMarcus Aldridge anymore, and I don't. I think that there is a place in the league for spot shooting and jump shooting fours. He does not bring you that physical presence, and Pau Gasol at this point in his career doesn't either. No. They don't have a guy that can go and get you 12 rebounds a game. They lost Dedmon, correct?
I think so, yeah.
He was to me, if they had Dedmon back, he was a guy they could bring off the bench that could give them that rebound presence at the middle. I just don't love their big man presence, and they don't have a shooter other than Danny Green. They just don't have. And listen, Kawhi Leonard is a guy that has developed a really nice three-point game and a mid-range game. He's going to be controlling the ball. Tony Parker's at a point in his career where I don't know what the hell you're going to get from him. And Patty Mills is sort of always up and down for me. So it's a weird team for me because they could be the 10th seed or they could be the 2 in my opinion anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them anywhere. I think they'll make the playoffs. As long as they have Popovich as coach, I can't pull. It's like, in football, we talk about Belichick. Yeah. Like, he's that guy. And as long as he's directing things and he's just a mastermind of the game and he's going to will them into at least, I would think, 45 plus 50 wins. So I think they're a playoff team. I love the addition of Rudy Gay, and he played really well last night. So I think he can be a shooter. I love Rudy Gay. I'm a big UConn fan, and I feel like he's just never been in a good system at any point in his career. And I think now's the opportunity for him to show that he could play in a system and play for a competitive team. But with that, so we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to last night's games. And since we're talking about the Spurs anyway here, let's transition right into that. It was Spurs Timberwolves, and this was the game last night that outside of the Celtics Bucks, I was so excited about because I'm so excited about this Timberwolves team. 2 great coaches, tons of players on the court. I mean, did you get a chance to check it out or see anything? Or?
Yeah, I watched a little bit, and maybe what I'm most interested in seeing is how they tinker with their lineup because you have so many interesting players from the 2 position to the 3 position if you're the Timberwolves. I love the fact that Jimmy Butler is just one of those players for me that is going to be listen, he went there because of Thibodeau. Thibodeau knows that to be successful, he needs a guy like Butler who can be a top defender, but also can put in 25 plus. To me, the interesting guy is Wiggins. How does Wiggins fit in as a scorer? Because Karl-Anthony Towns is putting 20 plus points a game, in my opinion. So is then Butler. And then you look at, can Teague be a 8 points, 15 assist guy? Because they need that from Teague. They need him to just really focus on distributing the ball. And Karl-Anthony Towns, is he a 23, 24 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 8 assist guy? Because he could be that too. And it is really interesting. It's about the roles, and you talked a little bit about roles earlier. It's about, can this team get enough guys in the role positions? And when you talk about Crawford being their bench player, and you look at Tyus Jones, who I thought disappeared for a couple of years, it looks like he's a player, and that's huge for Minnesota.
Yeah, I actually was very impressed with Tyus Jones last night and the way he was just handling the offense and distributing the basketball. He'll never put up, I don't think, big stats.
No, but he can be an effective 3-point shooter for sure off the bench.
Yeah, and a good transition player. I just think he's I think he made a couple big plays in transition where he just drew contact, got to the line. Scrappy defender, not a very big guy like him coming off the bench. Yeah, I just like the moves they made, man. I'm a huge Tom Thibodeau fan. I think as long as he's there, that team's going to be gritty. They're going to create turnovers. Jimmy Butler, I love him. He can be up and down a little bit, but now they have three guys that up. I think that was one they were missing, is having that other guy that if Wiggins isn't quite, he's a little bit streaky if he's not playing well, or, the one thing about Karl Anthony Towns, I was really hard on him coming out of college, but he's totally impressed me. I love his game, except for he's a terrible defender. I think he is going to struggle with some of the bigs around the league, and Tom Thibodeau's, that's got to be just frustrating to him because he's such a defensive coach. So they're a super interesting team to me, and I'm really excited to see how they evolve throughout the season with that lineup, like you said.
I think the one thing, too, that I like about that team is their ability to play multiple types of games. And you look at a guy, the one thing that I really like about a guy like Teague that maybe other people don't is he's not a guy that needs to be a scorer, so to speak. And then you look at guys like Shabazz Muhammad, a guy who's been in that system for a long time. And then Melo Trimble is coming off their bench too, I think, right?
Yeah.
He's another guy I really liked coming out of college that didn't get enough love. And who's the other guy they brought over from the Bulls? They brought somebody else over too, right? Oh, right. And then you've got, that's the thing that I think maybe no other team in the West has. They have essentially two lines of bigs. When you've got Dieng and you've got wait, who else did you say it was?
They got Dang, Gibson,
right. Yep. So that's your second roll of bigs. Like, you're a team that can really compete against the biggest teams in the league. No problem.
I like the kid Patton they drafted this year too. Tom Thibodeau won't play rookies much, but if they ever start, if Gibson goes down, somebody goes down, they still have a third guy that's a top pick.
They're an interesting team, and I thought ESPN put out a good article that really asked the right question. Is Thibodeau maybe going to ask too much of this young roster? But you don't want to say young, because you do have a lot of those nice veterans who have played under Thibodeau before that I don't think will allow some of these younger players who aren't used to maybe the demands that a coach like Thibodeau bring defensively. But this is a team that I think you're right, though, about Anthony Towns. He's not a great defender. So that's where I wonder is, with the addition of Gibson, with Shabazz Muhammad, do they have guys coming off the bench that can fill defensive roles? I think they do. So I think I like that about them.
Yeah. All right, we'll move into some of these other games here, but I agree with you. And I did have Timberwolves as I think I have it at the 5 seed. So
4 or 5 is where I'm thinking they'll be. Yeah.
So last night, a couple not so great games to start off the evening. We had the Charlotte Hornets against Detroit Pistons. Pistons won that 102-90.
Before you go on, did you see the crowd in Detroit?
I honestly didn't watch a single part of that game.
Dude, there was like 4,000 people there, and they unveiled their new arena that is like taxpayer provide. Oh, dude, it was bad. Like, they made the taxpayers spend all sorts of money, and there was nobody there at that arena. It was bad to see.
I don't know the direction that team's
Me either, man.
I like some of the guys on the team, but I don't see them doing anything this year. Although they came out and they beat the Hornets. The Hornets are just a team. I just don't know who they are. I like a lot of the guys on that
Me too. I like Kaminsky a lot as a stretch 4. Yeah. I like Dwight in that system, to be honest, and I really like Malik Monk. So
I think Dwight is a team killer. I think everywhere he goes, he destroys teams. If he hasn't developed an offensive game at this point,
he's never going to. He's never going to.
He'll never do it. I do love Kemba. Again, that might be my UConn bias coming through, but he's an exciting player to watch. So just a weird team. I think they could be right there on the cusp of that last playoff seed in the East, but they seem to always be there and then just end up being 3 games.
To me, it's all about what player you have in Drummond. If you have the Drummond of 2 years ago where he's a 17 and 14 guy, then you're rolling. Yeah. But if he's a 12 and 11 guy like he was last year, it's just not going to do it for you.
Yeah, So, and then we'll move on to another, I think 2 bad teams this year. It was the Brooklyn Nets versus Pacers. Pacers win 140-31 in a terrible no defense game. This is kind of the problem with the NBA. While there's so much excitement and so many good young players to look out for, you end up with these just turd of games. I mean, nobody's watching it, right? It's not going to be on TV anywhere but the Yes Network or whatever. But
I'll tell you what I was disappointed in is and Jeremy Lin was on my fantasy team last year, and when he played, was a super effective player for the Nets. I was excited to see him as the 2 guard with what's his name from
D'Angelo.
the Lakers? Yeah, with D'Angelo as your 1. I was really excited for that this year. And by excited, however excited you could be about watching Brooklyn play, but everybody, if you're an NBA fan, you always sort of cling to at least 1 or 2 really bad teams just to kind of, because you like players. I like Jeremy Lin. It's really unfortunate the injury history that he's really had to put up with. Obviously, tearing the patella tendon, he's out for the season, and in my opinion, he may never really play again.
This one's going to be a tough one for him. I think he's out for the season, and if he does try to make a comeback, I think he's going to miss part of the next season too. I mean, that's a really tough injury for him. It's going to take some time for him to come back. There's a good chance we don't see him make a comeback. I just don't know. And but yeah, these 2 teams, some bad teams some years, but it's not going to be either one of these this year, I don't think, for me. But just a terrible game to start off the year. No defense at all. And then I was actually super surprised by this next game. We had the Miami Heat, who I actually like quite a bit, going up against the Orlando Magic. The Magic took them 116-109. And I have the Magic as one of the worst 3 teams in the league. So I was pretty surprised.
I disagree.
Really?
I disagree because I think they've got decent depth. And the one guy, I mean, by decent depth, they don't have one great player. But for me, Fournier is interesting.
Sure.
Because he's a guy that can shoot. He doesn't do a lot of great things, but you talk about putting him next to Peyton. Peyton's a guy that can move that ball around. Aaron Gordon's a nice player. They're interesting. I agree with you. They're probably not in terms of talent a great team, but you add Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is another nice player. I don't know. Orlando isn't a team that I don't think I'm writing off as the worst team in the East.
I think the Bulls are going to run away with being the worst team in the East, especially after the recent Bobby Portis and Mirotic out 6 weeks. So that's going to kill us. But I don't love Aaron Gordon. I feel like he's a poor man's Blake Griffin, and he's never really been able to develop much.
That's fair.
The way Blake has. And I don't know. I just don't love that team, but I do like Miami. I think at the end of the year, after the All-Star break, they made a great run. They probably deserved that last playoff spot
without Justice either. And I think his addition this year might be the difference for them. But Dragic needs to be close to a 20-point scorer, and I just don't know that he is that, because Dion isn't a guy that you can rely on to be. They need a 20-point scorer on that team. They need a 20-point scorer. They don't have that right now. So to me, that's obviously I thought, to be honest, that there was a good fit for Gordon Hayward, that I thought it was really Miami. Like I thought that was the spot he should have gone. But he ends up going to Boston. Obviously, we know about the injury, but it is interesting to see the Heat because they just don't have that go-to scorer, and I think that's what ends up hurting them.
Yeah, I mean, when I say I like them, I feel like they're one of those teams in the East. Every year there's a battle basically between 6 and 9 seed. It gets really tied up log jam out there, and I think there could be anywhere in that mix. I do like Whiteside a lot. I think he brings a lot to the table. I don't think he's like as good of a player as like an Embiid or anything, but he's going to get his points. He's going to get some big stat lines, especially against the weak East. There's not a ton of big men that are going to get in his way. So they're an interesting team to keep an eye on, kind of a bottom possible playoff team. We'll move on here. A team that you and I both already said we liked, and this was a good game. I actually watched this game, and I'm super high on John Wall this year, and it was the Wizards versus the 76ers. Wizards walk away 120-115. And this is a good game for the league to kind of premiere some talent.
Do you know who I like more? I mean, obviously I don't like him more than John Wall, but on that team, Kelly Oubre has really struggled in the playoffs this year, ended up getting benched. Yeah. He is, to me, their most important player because you know what you're getting from Beal when he's healthy. I think Beal gives you 60 games a year, and you hope that he's healthy for the playoffs because he's a dynamic shooter. But then you look at, obviously, Porter is a nice three-point shooter. I think he's another guy that maybe got really benefited by, he's just overpaid. He got way overpaid. In my opinion, I thought Washington should have let him walk and try to get Melo. But that's neither here nor there. I just think that they definitely overpaid for for Porter, but I think the most important player on that team is Oubre, because if he can be a better version of what he was last year, he's the fourth player that they need. He just really is.
My concern for the Wizards is I think they could be possibly a top 3 team in the East this year, just because I really think John Wall I don't think he'll win MVP, but I think he'll be up in that conversation if he keeps. The guy that has just really developed a full point guard game. He might be one of the top 3 point guards in the league.
No question.
So they just don't have a bench. When he's not in, that team just, the gas comes off and they're just struggling until he steps back in. So a little worried about that for that team. And then they went up against the Sixers, which we already spent some time talking about. So a really fun game. Simmons had a great game in his NBA debut. Just kind of seemed like he was able to do whatever he wanted. I don't know if you got to see that.
I didn't see a lot of it, but it's sort of kind of what I imagined is him being a point forward, a guy that, and listen, I love Markelle Fultz because he's a point guard that can play off the ball, that can be an effective player without the ball in his hands, and that's super difficult to find in modern day point guards. Most point guards need the ball in their hand to be ultimately successful. Fultz is a guy that can be I think a pretty successful, off ball shooter, but I think he can also create with the ball in his hand. So he's sort of the perfect point guard for this team because I do think that Simmons is going to control the ball in that offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. And I think both those teams are teams to keep an eye on. If you get a chance to see them, ESPN, Primetime, TNT, check them out because I think they're fun, young teams. And they're not the top tier teams. So I know people are sick of seeing Cleveland and Golden State. There's some other good teams to watch. And including in that list would be the other game. I think it was on ESPN last night. It was Milwaukee Bucks versus the Celtics. Milwaukee squeaks out 108. To 100 in the Celtics home opener. First full game without Gordon Hayward. That was a great game, really. 2 really good teams. I think those teams are really jockeying for that position of second to third best team in the East. And Milwaukee comes out with a huge road victory. Did you get to see any of that game?
I'm just glad, Aaron, that they've been patient with Jason Kidd because I do think that was a roster that needed some patience to allow it to grow. I love the pieces that they're such an awkward team, and awkward in a good way because they're really long. They just create Chris Middleton's it's just like the perfect 2-man in this league because he can shoot the 3 and he can defend. And not enough 2s do that. Most guys are either a great shooter or a great defender. They're not both. Right. So that's what I love about Chris Middleton. If they can stay healthy, which has really been their issue the past 3 years, if they can stay healthy and they can keep all of their main core players, and in my opinion, if Thon Maker can turn into a legitimate number, a third big option for that team and be a guy that comes off the bench that can shoot the 3, that could be a threat inside, that's a huge, huge get for them.
Yeah, they're to me, I was big on Portland for a long time. I felt like Portland was on the cusp of becoming really good, and then it just never happened. And to me, I've been talking about the Bucks for a couple of years now and saying, they're right there, they're going to get good. And then Jabari Parker goes down, Middleton goes down, and like you said, they just have had a bad run of injuries. And what I like most about them is on the defensive side of the ball in the playoffs, the game slows down a little bit. They have such length when you're talking about switching up on some of these big wings. Like their switches don't really affect them because they have such great length and athleticism. So go ahead and try to make them switch. It's actually going to play into their hands because you just have his nickname fits him perfectly, the Greek Freak. Like he can guard anybody.
There's not a big difference in size between their 2 and their 4. And that has got to scare teams that you're 2, 3, and 4 you're going up against nightly. You're going into a mismatch. That's difficult to really acknowledge as a team going into knowing that you're going to have a size differential when you go into that game at the 2, 3, and 4 position.
Yeah, and I think Giannis is a sneaky MVP candidate, and he kind of proved that with his 37 points last night. Big stat.
I also think if like I said, if Thon Maker can be a double-digit scorer for this team, that just creates so many mismatches because he's a 7-foot 4-man. Like he's a 7-foot power forward. And that is, listen, Porzingis proves that's a difficult position at that size to defend on a night-to-night basis.
Absolutely. And we'll run through the rest of these games here real quick. There isn't a ton to talk about. We'll have you back on to kind of dip into more of these teams here going forward. But so we had Pelicans, Grizzlies. Grizzlies win that 103-91. Nothing great there. I don't think either of those teams are going to do a ton. Maybe Pelicans sneak in the playoffs. Then we had Hawks, Mavs, another kind of game.
Yeah.
117-11. Hawks win. I think both those teams are bad, missing the playoffs. And then, just one of those out west late night games. It's no fun. Utah Jazz versus the Nuggets, 106-96. Just not great stuff.
Nuggets are interesting, though. The Nuggets are interesting because I think their starting lineup's really nice. I think they screwed the pooch. I think that they were another team that really should have made a harder push towards Kyrie because I just think if they had Kyrie. Listen, I like Gary Harris a lot. I just don't think that if you add Gary Harris in with Wilson Chandler and just kind of all the other players that are really similar, they needed to trade 2 of the 3 players that are exactly the same to get a player like Kyrie, and they just didn't. And, I don't know that it was a lack of trying. I think they did try to do it, but
Kyrie also said he wasn't going to re-sign with certain teams, right?
Right. So that always is going to play into it. But in my opinion, I just don't think they have the scorer on that team now, especially with Danilo gone. Not that Danilo was that scorer, but Danilo had the capabilities of being that scorer, and now that he's gone in LA, it's just they don't have that guy. And Wilson Chandler is not a guy that can do it every night. He's a guy that can come in and give you 25 on a weeknight, but he isn't a guy that can do that week in and week out.
No, and I think they're not going to be a super fun team. They're going to be one of those not playoff teams. To me, that's not going to be a ton of fun to watch this year. And I felt bad for the Jazz losing Hayward because I do think that they were doing something special. I do like Rudy Gobert. I just like some of the pieces on that team. I think they play a real traditional style of basketball. And losing Hayward, I think, just hurt because that's not a sexy city to attract free agents. So you got to draft guys to get guys that fit your system. So.
And then they added, what's his name from Minnesota, point guard.
Rubio.
Rubio, right? They added Rubio, which I thought would have been a perfect fit for Hayward because they just didn't really have. And I think Rodney Hood was another guy that was maybe set to have a good season. I still think he got injured, right?
Yeah.
That's tough. It really is because Hood and Hayward were their top 2 scorers in my opinion, and now they're gone. Yeah. So,
and I like Hood.
Me too.
I think
me too.
So then we had the biggest blowout so far of the year with the Blazers winning 124-76 over the Suns. The Suns are going to be fighting some of those East teams for worst team in the league this year.
Yeah. It's bad, and at least they have Devin Booker. And Devin Booker's a guy that could score 50 points any night that he wants to. It's a matter of does he have the help around him, and he doesn't.
I don't think there's any help there. I think they're going to try to make some moves too this year before the trade. I think they know what position they're in, and they're going to kind of build around Booker, and it's going to be
him and Jackson, and it should be Jackson, it should be Booker, and you should try to get rid of Bledsoe and Knight as soon as you can. Yeah. And I thought that it was a big mistake going into the season with Bledsoe on the roster, to be honest.
I do think they tried to get rid of him. I mean, all you heard on draft night was they were trying to make moves. I know the Bulls were involved in.
I know that the Cavs were deeply involved with Bledsoe as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think they were trying to get rid of him, and you're going to hear about it all season until the trade deadline, Bledsoe, and it'll be interesting because I think he's a good player, and I think he fits some of those teams up at the top. He could be a nice addition to some of those teams, but he's not doing anything in Phoenix this year.
No.
And then we finished the night off out west, Rockets over the Kings. A lot closer of a game than I thought it would be. It was a 105.
Love the Kings.
Yeah,
Love the Kings. Yes. I never thought that they were the team that showed the other teams how to make a trade.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at what teams, what Indiana got for Paul George, what the Knicks got for Melo,
right.
You look and you see what they got, you're like, wow. Buddy Hield to me is going to be a great player for that organization. I love them bringing in a couple of veterans to help them along this process a little bit. I think the Sacramento Kings are going to be a team that are in that 8th, 9th, 10th seed that are going to really kind of be a team that surprises people this year.
Yeah, I mean, I had them on the outside looking in just because I do like the Lakers and Pelicans over them. I think who else do I have? I think the Clippers have just enough to still be in that bottom part of the playoffs. So I couldn't find a spot for him in the playoffs for me, but think you're right though. Sitting around ninth, that's not a bad place to be for a team.
Not with a team that kind of expected to not be in that position, to be a team that's rebuilding. But then you bring in a guy like Vince Carter, you bring in a guy like Zach Randolph, who are just, I think, are good guys to have around some of these younger players. And listen, De'Aaron Fox, I think he's a low-key Rookie of the Year candidate that people aren't talking about. You put him, he's going to have an opportunity to get 10 assists a night because you have a great scorer next to him, Buddy Hield. I love the way that their roster was constructed because 1 through 12, all players.
Yeah. And this is what we kind of hit to too, is like, you can really look at all these NBA rosters and see just good young talent. I mean, even in the bottom feeding teams in this league, there's things to be excited about. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a crazy psycho Bulls fan.
Don't feel crazy. I like what the Bulls have. Like, I love Denzel Valentine. I think he every year is the sort of guy and the sort of talent that's going to get better and better and better and better and can be a guy. Listen, he doesn't have a pretty release, but he can still shoot the three. He can shoot the mid-range, and he could be a guy that's 13 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. And if you have that on your start, that's a nice point guard to have in this league. That's a Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted him to get more minutes last year. I hated the lack of ball movement. I mean, you got Fred Hoiberg. I don't think he's a great coach, but if you're going to have him as your coach, at least allow him to play his system. And they had a lack of three-point shooters. And in the preseason this year, I think he shot in the low 40% from three for Valentine. So I expect more minutes for him this year. I mean, I like the team. I think there's some things to be positive about. I want to see Levine come back once he's healthy. I want to see Dunn get healthy and see what he's got, because I was big on him coming out of the draft, and now the Bulls were able to acquire him. So, but it's going to, I mean, I've been through 20-win seasons as the Bulls fan before, so I'm expecting that, but that's what all I'm saying is, as a fan, there's always something to kind of get yourself excited for these games. And so into tonight's games here, I'm going to run through the weekend's games and just maybe as I run through them, have you just pick a winner, who you think's going to win. And I'll tell you who I thought, and we'll wrap up here soon because the Thunder started. I know you're going to go watch that game.
Yes, I am.
So right now the Bulls are actually down 45-25. So awful start to the season against the Raptors. Raptors are a tough team. So we had that's the first game. I had the Raptors winning.
I would also have Toronto,
Yeah, and then we got Knicks Thunder. That game just kicked off. I had the Thunder winning. What do you think?
I did too, although I think the Knicks are going to be a better team than people. They're not going to be the worst team in the East. I think Hardaway and Porzingis together are going to make a nice combo, and the Knicks won't be the worst team in the league. That's all that matters.
I actually thought that was a good spot for Kyrie to end up going over there. I think that would have been a really fun team in a big market.
I don't think. Listen, I wouldn't put that. I think Kyrie ends up in New York long term.
Do you?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I say this all the time to one of my best buddies that we talk NBA, and I say, when the Knicks, the Bulls, like those teams aren't good, it's not fun. You need the Knicks to be good. You need the Bulls to be good. It helps the league. And then the last game of the night, Lakers Clippers in the Battle of LA.
Love the Lakers. Love them.
I like the Lakers this year. And I think the Lakers win this game, and I think they take back being the top dog in LA.
What I like about the Lakers is that they can bring out 8 guys, 9 guys. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope coming in off their bench. I mean, that's a nice thing to have. Jordan Clarkson, I think, is another nice player, and I think Lonzo is primed for nearly a triple-double season.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's going to be a good player, all of his dad's antics aside. And I'm a big fan of Randall. I think he had that rough injury, and I think he's just been able to develop for a couple of years. I think you match him with Ball, and he gets him in the ball, on the ball.
And I don't think, listen, I just don't think Brandon Ingram gets talked about enough as being a guy that has the potential to be an elite scorer. Yeah. He's a KD guy. He's got the same body type. If he can turn into the sort of lethal shooter that KD is, he's got the types, he's got the goods to be a KD in this league in the future. And the guy's 19.
Yeah, well, I think that's the problem right now in the league is there's so much good young offensive talent that you do get lost with some of these guys while they develop for a year or two. And I agree with you. I was huge on him out of the draft, and the Lakers got him, and good for them because I don't think it's going to be a long transition from the Kobe years into more playoff years.
Agreed.
For them. And then Friday night, we start off with the Hornets and Hawks. That one's in Charlotte. I got the Hornets winning. That's a terrible game.
It's a bad game, but I agree. I got Charlotte winning that one.
Okay. Yeah, and then we got Cavaliers Bucks, which is actually a great game. I can't wait to watch this one. I've got the Bucks winning just because I didn't see a lot out of Cleveland.
I'm with you. I got the Bucks as well. I just think Giannis is going to have an opportunity to go head to head against LeBron, and I think it's maybe personally, I think it's a great stage for him to maybe really show the people that have been doubting that. I think there's a lot left, but I think the people that have been doubting are going to have an opportunity to see him go head to head against the best player in the world.
And I know it's October and it's a long season. I try not to get excited at all in the whole first month. But if they come back, if they come out back-to-back games and beat Cleveland and Boston, I think you got to start having a serious conversation about the Bucks being one of the top teams in the East. And so then we go over another fun matchup, man. We got Celtics-Sixers. And I've got the Sixers winning, making the Celtics go 0-3 to start the year.
I've got the Sixers as well. I think that could be a blowout game.
Yeah,
I think the Sixers might be the kind of team that surprise people and really fight for a top position in the East, not only just making the playoffs. I think that they're the type of worst to first team, because there's one team every year in every sport. It doesn't matter pro sports. There's one worst to first team every year. They seem to be the candidate for me. That could be that team.
Yeah, I mean, people are hot on them, and I'm super excited about them. And I just don't think the Celtics have any bigs that can get in there and stop them. And, they're a little bit wounded right now, and I think it's going to take them a few weeks to really recover from the Hayward thing fully. And then we got another 7:00 game. We got the Pacers going up against the Trailblazers, which I don't think that's going to be a great game. I got the Trailblazers winning that one.
I like the Trailblazers.
Okay.
I like Nurkic a lot.
Yeah.
He's my I don't want to say comeback player there. I want to say like most improved candidate. I think Nurkic is a legitimate double-double threat, and I think that if you're just what I like about him is he can spread the ball. He can move the ball from the post, which I think is huge because they need somebody other than their two top scorers to be guys that could touch the ball. Nurkic I like a lot.
Yeah. Almost a Sabonis with his ability to pass the ball. A little throwback there for the Blazers fans. I don't disagree with any of that, and they still got a Lillard who can just go off any night of the week. So interesting team to watch, but I think that's not a great game in the tomorrow night or Friday night game. And then we have the Wizards Pistons. I think Wizards are just going to blow them out. I don't see the Pistons even having a chance.
I'm there with you.
Then we got Magic Nets, which is one of the worst games I feel like of the night. Tough Friday night game. I have the Magic winning just because I don't think the Nets are going to win more than 20 games.
Without Jeremy Lin, he was really their number 2 option. I agree. I'm Magic there.
Yeah, and then we got Kings, Mavericks. I think the Mavericks are pretty bad. I feel bad for Dirk just ending his career on just a bad team, and I think the Kings, I'm a little excited like you are. I think they walk away with that.
Give me the Mavs.
You got the Mavs, really?
Give me the Mavs.
Yeah. I don't think they're good.
Who's that? The point guard, Smith, right?
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah.
I like him a lot, but it's all I got, but
I mean, any given night, really. You just don't know in this league.
Yep.
And then we got Jazz, Timberwolves. I think Timberwolves bounce back from their loss opening night and take that against the Jazz. That's in Minnesota. So
I'll take Soda.
Okay. Yep. Then the last two for Friday night, we got Warriors, Pelicans. I'm going with the Warriors.
Going Warriors as well.
Yeah. Lakers, Suns. I'm going Lakers.
Give me Give me the Showtime crew.
That's 2. That'd be 2 in a row for them.
I know.
Good for them. Then Saturday, we'll wrap up with Saturday and Sunday's games here real quick. We got Sixers, Raptors. Who do you got?
Give me the Rap.
Yeah, I'm going the same way. We got Magic, Cavaliers.
Give me the Cavs.
Same. We got Spurs, Bulls.
Give me the Spurs.
Yeah, for sure. This is an easy run here.
Saturday. I know, right?
Get your gambling money out. And,
yeah, I know. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, Warriors, Grizz.
Give me the Grizz.
Okay, I got the Warriors, but the Grizz can play some tough games. But
yep, if there's one team that maybe doesn't match up against the Warriors, well, it is the Grizz because they're so. Here it is. The Grizz are gritty.
Yeah, they are. It's true. It's cliche, but it's true.
It is. It's very cliche, but it is what it is.
Pacers in Miami.
I'll take the Heat.
I got the Heat there as well. I think the Pacers are going to be just terrible this year. Mavericks, Rockets.
Give me the Rockets.
I got the Rockets too. Put them at 3-0 for the year.
Yeah, these are easy games.
Yeah, it's not a tough Saturday here. We got Pistons, Knicks.
That's a tough one. That's the first tough one. I'll take the Knicks.
I am going to go with the Pistons in this one, actually.
I think we might need to get a parlay for this weekend, because it seems like these might be some games where you could go on a streak on a heater.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a fun night of gambling for people that do that. And we got Blazers Bucks. Who do you got there?
Give me the Blazers.
Okay, I got the Bucks. I just think the Bucks are just so good. I think they're going to go on an early run and put themselves in a nice position. We got Thunder Jazz.
Give me the Jazz. I like the Jazz. Yeah,
I've got the Thunder on that one, so we might be able to make some side bets here on some of these.
Yeah, we might.
I'll have to see the point spreads first, though. I don't know. Then we got Kings Nuggets. That's in Denver.
Give me the Kings.
I've got the Kings as well. I don't think the Nuggets home court advantage matters with this team that much.
No, agreed.
Suns Clippers.
Give me the Clip.
I got the Clip too. And then Sunday night to finish off the first week of NBA action, we got the Hawks versus the Nets.
Give me Hawks.
Yeah, I got the Hawks too. Timberwolves Thunder, great matchup for Sunday night.
I'll take the Thunder in that one.
Okay, I got the T-Wolves, so that'll be a good one. It is in OKC. They have a nice home court advantage. And then we got Pelicans Lakers, should be a fun one too.
I'll take Pels in that one. I can't start the Lakers 3 or 4-0. I can't do it.
I do have the Lakers in that one. Showtime coming back. ESPN will be all over that if the Lakers start off.
That they will.
Awesome, man. Well, is there anything else you got going on? Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up tonight?
I'm excited. This is one of those nights, the rarities, I think, like maybe the high holy days of sports fans, but that all 4 major sports are going on tonight. Right. That we don't really get an opportunity to see basketball, hockey, baseball, and football all happening one night. The same thing with Sunday, I assume. So we're in a peak sports season, so let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I get super excited for this time of year. Everything's kind of going on, and my football team's not quite. We share the same football team in the Bills. They're not quite out of it.
They're not out of it yet, which is a nice change of pace for us going into Week 7.
At the start of the year of basketball, anything can happen. So it's a fun time for sports fans. So everybody enjoy it. Where can people, if anyone's listening out there, where can they find you?
I'm at Nate Geary, WGR. It's NateGeary, WGR up on Twitter. And shoot me a follow.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody listening tonight. We're going to have more episodes. We're going to try to go weekly. I'm thinking do live Thursday and then get the podcast up as soon as I can Thursday evening for Friday morning for you to consume. So keep checking back. Let's get some live interaction on the YouTube page. It's fun. We'll answer your questions, and hopefully we'll have Nate back soon, because I enjoyed the conversation, Nate, and I appreciate you coming on, man.
I love some NBA talk, man. So whenever.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next week.